hay tres con... Sí, pues hay tres. Sí, però tu dius que farem por... O sigui, Joan s'espera que tu li diguis que nosaltres l'introduïm. Jo vaig donant acceptar a la gent.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I think we can start. Basically, first we will, well, Joan, that is the coordinator of Follow Project, will introduce you and explain you shortly what the project is about. Then I will talk about very shortly who is like Fundació Espígula 2 and what is our work within the Follow Project and the aim of this webinar. And then Hector will explain you and present the most important parts of the quantification manual. And finally, at the end, we will have a part of, we will use Slido, that is a program to basically to recall answers to the same question and to be able to share the answers with the audience. We will share with you a QR code, also a link with a number code so that you can enter into that Slido. And if you have any trouble with that, you can always write your questions in the chat and we will collect them. And maybe if they are not many and they are easy, maybe we can answer them at the end of the webinar. Otherwise, we will work on them and we will send you the answers maybe next week or in the coming days.
We are recording.
Vale. Okay, so I don't know, Joan, if you want to start.
Yep. Thank you, Berta. And first of all, thank you all and thank you very much for being here in this second session of the workshop. First of all, I want to say that the first workshop that we did was a great success. Hopefully it was interesting for all of you that already attended the first one. And hopefully this second one will be as successful and fruitful as the first one was. I'm sure it will be. As you may know probably if you attended the first one, so Follow is an Horizon Europe project that is grounded in four main levels of change in relation of food losses. Which are understanding, measuring, training, and adopting. And in here, the first workshop was more about understanding what are the food losses, so how we defined it, and to set a common ground for all of us to talk, let's say, a common language. And the second workshop will be much more focused on the measuring side. So we are expecting that this protocol that we are trying to develop in the measuring section could have a huge impact and a huge potential if finally is adopted as a base scenario for measuring food losses at European level or even in a wider scope. But to achieve that, what we want to make sure is that this is not only an output of an European project, that we want to make sure that everyone outside of the consortium can participate to it, can give feedback to it, and in the end can feel that this output also belongs to them. So this is why we are trying to organize these workshops to share our work, but not only to do that, we really need the feedback, your opinions, and to improve as much as possible the work we are doing. And with that final goal of having something that belongs to the community and not to a project itself. So this is the main goal of this workshop today. As a side note, and maybe later on at the end of the meeting, we go back to that, but I would encourage you to visit our webpage, and even if you want to collaborate more in detail with us, sharing feedback or your knowledge, we have a form that you can fill, and we will get you, or we will update you with all the deliverables that we're providing for very specific topics such as sustainability, this measurement, policies, technological developments, and so on. So if you are very interested in some of the particular topics that we are working on, just please go through the website, fill the contact form, and then this is a way in which we can interact more closely. Having said that, I think I will give back the floor to Spigula 2. So feel free, I don't know, Berta, Raquel, or Hector, to jump in the conversation.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Joan. Yeah, just very short. So we are Fundació Espígula 2. We are the leaders of Work Package 4. That is not the work package in which we are developing this proposal of methodology. And just very short, so we are a non-profit organization based in Barcelona. Our main focus is fighting food loss and food waste, together with promoting the right to food. We have been working since 2014. And during the years, we have built a professional team with the experience on measuring and quantifying food waste and also food loss, which is at the same time complemented with our one of our main activities, that is cleaning. And we have a team of people like going to the fields every day, so we are updated on the reality of primary production, at least in the area of Catalonia. Just for you to know who we are and who is talking to you. Basically, I'm presenting this methodology. Well, I don't want to be repetitive. Joan already said the objective of this workshop. We really appreciate everyone who is participating in the workshop. Also, like people who took time to review the document and send us comments. We really appreciate it, and we will apply all of the ones we consider most important and more appropriate, like to the measurement, to the quantification methodology. And so basically, a bit like this work package consists first on proposing this methodology to measure food loss in primary production. And basically, when we were also defining this work package, we knew, but we just defined a previous task that was like, okay, what should we measure? What are food losses? Because at least in the European context, there is no an official definition for that. So that's why our first task was to define or propose a definitional framework for food losses. That's what we worked on during the previous webinar. And so now it's, okay, how are we gonna measure these food losses at primary production? Basically, our objective is, so we don't want to, we know that there are organizations, experts, researchers, administrations that have been working on that already. That's why we have contacted them. Our main objective is to complement all the tools that already exist and regulations, mainly with the focus of European Union. And so what we want to do is that we want to use, we think that this methodology will serve as a tool to measure food loss, to know the dimension of this problem. So we create evidence of its importance, so it can be included also in the requirements of the delegated decision regarding measuring food waste at member state level. As you will see, and Hector will explain, so we have put quite some effort and importance to direct weighting. So we think that this is, as it is published in many reports, it's a very robust way and methodology to measure food loss. But at the same time, we know that we are not gonna measure food loss through direct weighting in all the member states in Europe every year. So we know that, we are conscious. That's why also we propose to combine it with other type of methodologies that are maybe more indirect or more qualitative, but at the same time in the project there is a work package Work Package 3, that they are working on some technologies, no, that are based. I'm not an expert on that, with like high resolution cameras that can be used with tractors and also with drones to measure also food losses. And so we know that at the end of the project, the proposition of methodology will be more of a combination, no, of technologies and different methodologies to measure food losses, depending also on the commodity, depending on the agricultural sector, etc. So, well, I think this is everything I wanted to share with you. So now I will give the floor to Hector, that will present the manual.
Thank you, Berta. I think that now, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Okay, so thank you, Joan. Thank you, Berta. Thank you, Raquel, for this introduction, and thanks to all of you for your attendance in order to talk about this challenge of measuring food losses in the primary sector. So for this, we have like these 4 bullet points for this talk. At the beginning, we are going to talk briefly, but a little bit about what is this concept of food losses, the quantification manual of food loss, the main challenges identified to measure food loss, and key contribution reflection from the external experts. So Berta said, and also Joan, that the first seminar was only focused on the framework of food losses. But for today, maybe some of you know this concept, but maybe others don't have idea what is this definition and framework of food losses from follow. So this is our current definition. The food loss is any harvest mature plant, animal, or living being, including inedible part that is not successfully harvested, as well as food removed from the supply chain during post-harvest phase that doesn't become animal feed, byproduct, or food waste. In order to understand a little bit more this, we have to go to this graph. Remember, main stages within the primary production, and we are going to describe little by little, but very briefly, these phases. The first one, imagine that we are planting, and these plants are growing, but are not mature. This is an example, no? The green peach. So during this process of growing, some of this fruit is going to be discarded because, for example, animals or a plague or some weather conditions. So these discards are not considered food losses. They are considered production losses. Again, it's very important to highlight that something that is not considered food losses is not equivalent that we don't have to measure. It's just the opposite. We have to measure, but with another name. It's another piece of the puzzle. This is the case, production losses. But these peaches are growing, and there is one level of maturity where it's considered that is ready to be harvested. In that moment is the beginning, the starting point of the food losses concept. So from here to the moment of harvesting, in this period, for example, in this case, the peaches, again, they are going to be discarded because of a plague, for animals, for weather conditions, for many different circumstances. All these discards are considered food losses. But also during the process of harvesting, in this case, apples, some fruit are going to be discarded because of the size, because of the color, because of, again, plague, animals. All these discards are also considered food loss. But remember from the previous seminar that even after the harvesting process, during the post-harvest stage, some of them are considered, of course, food harvested and continue the agri-food chain. Others are going to go as a final destination as an animal feed, byproduct. Other are considered food waste, but there are some flows that are not considered any of them. So these flows we consider as food loss. This is one way of analyzing this concept, but we have another way of analyzing, no? Remember, according to the different stages, material type, avoidability, intention, and final destination. So again, if you want to know a little bit more about this concept, please go to this webinar. We have all the material that we have created, even the questions and our responses. So more than welcome to check. And if you have some questions, send us an email or whatever. Okay, so what's a previous seminar? This is only like an introduction, but for today, we are going to talk about this quantification manual of food losses. The beginning of this document appeared here in January of 2023, analyzing the current state of the art, the feedback from follow partners, and the expertise from Espigolador. With all this, we have created this first draft of the quantification manual. Was created in 2023 in September. At this document, we have now like 3 ways of validating or improving are here. The first one are thanks to external reviewers. Many of these external reviewers are now here in this webinar. So again, thank you very much for your help and your collaboration. In fact, now we have 86 external reviewers from EU countries and non-EU countries, and the profile are very different. From research center, public administration, NGOs, private company. The diversity is very high and we really appreciate it. So this is one way of validating. No? We are in contact with them, receiving feedback, even creating some interviews, some meetings to go beyond to the manual. So this is one way of improving, validating. There is a second way of improving and validating. Is this called follow case of study? This is this. In follow, we are going to measure food losses in different food commodities and in different territories. Here we have all the case of studies. The first one related to fruit and vegetables, we are going to measure food losses in apples, pears, tomatoes, peaches and nectarines, cabbages, lettuce, and additional as bonus track, artichokes, and citrus trees, especially oranges and mandarins, all of them in Spain. The second case of study is maize in Italy, but also potatoes in Belgium, milk in Ireland and the Netherlands, also to measure food losses of salmon in Norway, and mussels in Italy. So we are going to analyze the problem of food losses in all these food commodities, and we are going to compare these food losses, analyzing different way of production, conventional, organic, and agroecological. So all this experience is going to feed the manual. So this is the second way of validating and improving the current draft. But there is a third way. It is innovative and new technologies. Berta said before that is this kind of techniques that are focused or they address other topics and now are adapting to the challenge of measuring food losses. This is an example. Using drones for quantifying food losses in cauliflower fields in France. We have something similar, these new technologies adapting, for example, to analyze the food losses in apples in Belgium. So these different ways are going to feed the next and the new draft. They're going to be created, the next one in September 2024, and the next one 2025, and the final version of this quantification manual in April 2026. So you can see that this manual is a living document, and we want to analyze and reanalyze and discuss in order, as said Berta, not to reinvent the wheel, to create like a common path, to analyze, to measure food losses. We are here right now. We are receiving feedback from many of you as external reviewers. We are measuring food losses in the different case of studies, and we are testing these innovative tools and these new technologies. But for this seminar, we are going to talk about this first draft of the quantification manual and a little bit of this feedback from external reviewers and some experience from the case of studies. So first of all, quantification manual, main structure. The main chapter are divided in the most important question to quantify food losses. What do we have to measure? Where do we have to measure? How do we have to measure? And when do we have to measure? And to respond that, we have like two main approaches. One is for public administration at territorial level. So imagine that some of you are from the Ministry of Environment or the Agriculture of Italy, or from one region in France, and you want to measure food losses. How? In the quantification manual, try to respond to this question. But we have another approach at plot farm company level. If you are a farmer or you are a researcher and you just want to measure food losses in a specific plot, how we could do it? Also, you have some recommendations for that in this quantification manual. For today, for this seminar, we are going to focus on this level and to try to respond, how do we have to measure? The territorial level is going to be the next seminar, I think next month. Okay, so in order to respond, how do we have to measure, it's important to have like a basis, a very important criteria from the beginning. One of them is this one. This is our basis, the delegated decision from the European Commission. Many of you know that it's related only to food waste, but I think it's a very interesting basis. Remember, for many of you, this is very familiar, the typical table, no, with the different stages of the agri-food chain and the different method to measure food waste. This is good beginning in order to start to respond, how do we have to measure in the case of food loss? From our point of view, we have to use two methods. One is a quantitative approach, direct measurement, weighting, and qualitative approach, questionnaires and interviews. Both together, it's important that, both, not only one. Why? Direct measurement are very important because the majority of the surveys about food losses in the primary production normally use not very reliable method. So it's important to promote this kind of method to create reliable data of this problem. So this is important to create this reliable number. This is the quantitative approach, but this number needs a context. This context is provided by qualitative approach. So it's important to use both. And also it's important to avoid, in bracket, the temptation to use something very easy to do, like surveys and questionnaires, but be careful with a study like this that shows that it's not the same farmer's declaration that objective measurement. In some stages, the difference are very relevant. So this is very important to consider. Other thing that is very important to consider in this question, how do we have to measure? To find the balance between reliability and to be realistic. You know, all the entities, all the projects, we have limited resources. So it's important to find this balance. And in this manual, we try to provide recommendations in order to obtain reliable data, but with these limited resources. And this is the challenge for the quantification manual, is to demonstrate that it's possible to quantify food losses in many different food commodities. That's the challenge. For this first draft, we have to say that it's very crops oriented. Why? Because the majority of the studies are very focused on crops related to food losses, and some of our expertise are also focused on crops. But for the next draft, we are going to open to new food commodities, especially thanks to external reviewers, the case of studies, and these new technologies. Okay, but how do we have to measure? Again, remember, first of all, the qualitative approach is important. Interviews, questionnaires, etc., in order to provide a context for the number. Okay, but there is something fundamental before. This is something that sometimes in the studies are not very highlighted, and I think is key. If you cannot do it, you cannot measure. Even maybe for the weight as well, but food loss is impossible to do it. Is this engagement of primary sector? This is very, 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 very important. I know some studies and projects that say, yes, we are going to measure food losses in, imagine, tomatoes. But finally, at the end of the project, we couldn't do it because the farmers don't want to be measured. This is important we have to work on it, because when you are measuring food losses and you are registering these food losses in the farm, they have to understand that these food losses is not equivalent that the farmer are the guilty of these food losses. Normally, they are the victims of this problem, and this problem affect also to them. So it's important to change that. You don't have to hide this problem. So you have to do the opposite, to show the problem in order to altogether reduce the problem. So this is absolutely basic, to have this engagement. Okay, so after that, when we have this engagement, what kind of information we have to collect from a qualitative perspective? This is an example. For example, you have to collect basic data of the plot or the farm or the pond. It's very important also to obtain information from the main characteristic of this year's production, because maybe this year is in bracket normal, because normal year is strange, but quite on the average, or not, or it's very singular. If it's singular, why is singular? So this is very important to analyze. This is also important to analyze, to describe the characteristics of the harvesting process, because it's very linked to the food losses volumes. So this is important. And also something called number of cuts. We will explain later what is this. And of course, we have to collect what is the volume of food losses that you think that you are going to do. So in terms of volumes, but also the reason behind of these food losses. All these are the information that we have to collect from a qualitative perspective, from a qualitative method. But what's about quantitative approach? We have to collect, of course, harvested volume. But here, in this harvested volume, from our point of view, it's important to include this. Volume harvested with no economic yield for the producer. This is not equivalent to food losses. In fact, it happens that maybe some of these volumes are harvested and maybe they will go to the human consumption. So it's not food losses, but affect to the producer. This is a very interesting aspect if you want to reinforce the engagement of the producer, because it's very important for them to show this problem. So if you want to know a little bit more about these economic losses, we did this paper led by Maria de los Angeles Fernandez Zamudio and with the collaboration of Felicitas Schneider. And you can understand a little bit more the difference between food losses and these economic losses are very important and very interesting to analyze for the future. And of course, other information that we have to collect, food loss volumes. But look, here we have like 3 parameters or 3 categories. Why? Remember the graph. We have 3 stages within the primary production, and our proposal is to measure under direct measurement, under weighting, pre-harvest and harvest stages. Maybe for the post-harvest stage, it's more suitable use questionnaires and interviews. But this both, we have to measure our proposal with using this direct measurement. But remember, we did 3, and here appear only 2. There is 1 more here, which is this. Remember this, production losses. This is not food losses, but from our point of view, it's another piece of the puzzle. So if it is possible, it's good to measure as well in order to have the complete picture. Okay. Another information that is important to collect from a quantitative perspective, of course, you have to show the method of measuring, of course. And also it's important to have the reasons behind of these food losses. Okay, maybe some of you are thinking, Hector, you were talking about food loss volumes in the qualitative method and the reasons behind. And now you are talking about quantitative method and again, losses volumes and reasons behind. Are you repeating the questions? The answer is no, are different things. One thing is loss perceived and the other are real losses. Both are important. Losses perceived you can collect from a qualitative perspective, and real losses from our point of view you can obtain from a quantitative method. It's the difference like what I think I do and what I really do. So both are important. So our proposal is to measure both things. And another question that maybe for you, now you are analyzing this table, maybe you say, okay, Hector, but well, you say here that, for example, the percentage from total production of food losses, for example, appear 15%, 44 tons. But how I could measure this and produce these numbers? The answer is, well, you have to read the entire quantification manual. It's true that it's a little bit large, 80 pages, but and here in this seminar to describe 80 pages maybe it's a little bit complex. But for today, we consider that it's very interesting to share something called main challenges that we have identified to measure food losses. But if you want to go beyond to these challenges, I think that it's better to read the quantification manual or put in contact and we could share other ideas and go beyond in some questions. So feel free to do it. Okay, so I think that we are in the middle of the talk. So rest a bit, drink a little bit of water like me. And now prepare to the next 2 bullet points, next chapters. Let's go with the main challenges identified to measure food loss. 6 main challenges. The first one, the starting point of food loss. Remember again this graph. The starting point, ready to be harvested, caught or slaughtered. Sounds easy to identify, right? But it's a little bit complex when you have to adapt to the different food commodities, because this ready-to-be harvest, couch, or slaughter are based on different parameters. One is very obvious, edibility or the maturity level, but you have others, especially these market requirements, and you have other more specific for each food commodity. So you have to take everything into account to establish this line of ready-to-be harvest, couch, or slaughter. For example, here we have an example, the salmon. From 1 kilo, the salmon is edible for the human consumption. We can eat. But until 3 kilos, it's not considered ready to be cut due to commercial purposes. So the starting point of food losses has to be with 3 kilos, with 1 kilos. What do you think? In this case of a study, we are going to measure from 1 kilo just to have everything. And like this discussion, we will define at the end which is the most suitable. Again, have to be reliable and realistic with the companies to be measured. To establish this line of the starting point of food losses according to the different food commodities, it's very important to have a very good dialogue with the sector. So again, this point of engagement is fundamental. The second main challenge, to establish the sampling area. Imagine that you want to measure this plot with trees, for example, lemon trees, and you want to analyze the food loss there. Question, which percentage of the plot you have to measure in order to estimate the food losses? The literature review have different point of view. Here, the three main percentages, 0.1, 1, and 10%. We cannot find a general agreement on that. So our proposal for this first draft is the following. Percentage is below 0.1%. We consider insufficient measurement. Between 0.1 and 1, sufficient but limited measurement. Between 1% and 10%, significant measurement. Above 10%, desirable measurements. This is our proposal, and for the second draft, we are going to, it's going to be validated, but many of you as external experts, it's going to be validated in the different case of studies, and also using these new technologies that maybe help, as Berta said, maybe to increase the area of sampling. We'll see. Even thanks to different case studies, for example, the case of fruit and vegetables, we can play with this sampling area. For example, we can measure different sampling areas, 0.1, 1, more than 1, and estimate the total food loss for this plot. But we have the opportunity to compare with the reality. Why? Because of gleaning activities. So we are going to compare the final result of these studies with the real food losses that we have collected thanks to gleaning activities. And we are going to do in several food commodities, and all this experience is going to appear in the next draft of the quantification manual. Remember, cuts, this is only for crops. Coming back to the same example, well, we know the plot that we want to measure food losses. We know the sampling area that we are going to establish, but a new complexity. We don't have just a harvesting moment. We have more than one. Imagine that we have 3. These are 3 cuts. How do we have to measure? in this case. One of our main reference for that is Gregory Baker and his team. This is very interesting paper that he did. And our idea is to include the information that we need in order to estimate the food losses. Again, avoiding that you have to measure everything. Remember the balance between reliability and to be realistic. So this manual have some recommendation in order to estimate food losses when you have several cuts per agricultural campaign. Other challenge, when you want to measure pre-harvest and harvest losses. It's important to know that, well, not you have to measure everything. You don't have to measure in all the cases. For example, there are some food commodities that it's impossible to measure pre-harvest. Pre-harvest in milk, pre-milk, sounds a little bit strange. And maybe some food commodities also, maybe theoretically, is possible, but again, in order to be realistic, maybe it's not possible. Here is important when it's important for your study, it's useful. If it is not useful or it's not possible to measure, don't do it. Maybe you have to cover like food losses in general. But if yes, if it is possible and it's useful, let's go. How? This is an example. For example, for analyzing the problem of food losses in oranges. First of all, again, you have to have a very direct contact and very fluent with the farmer, because maybe someday out of the blue appear a call and say, Hector, we are going to harvest next week. So you have to measure 2-3 days before of harvesting. So then go to the crop, and we are tagging the different trees, obviously randomly selected. And these trees we are going to analyze, we are going to measure pre-harvest and harvest losses. After, we are going to collect all the oranges on the floor. Of course, we don't have to touch the oranges in the tree top, obviously, in this pre-harvest stage. And we have to weigh. You can use different scales according to the plot and the circumstances. And of course, you are going to collect the data, analyze the data, blah, blah, blah. And after, when it's harvest, this plot, again, you have to go 2-3 days later. And again, you are going to collect oranges, in this case, from the floor and from the treetop. And again, weighing and analyze the result, blah, blah, blah. That's the idea. This is the idea for fruit trees. But if you want to measure other food commodities, the quantification manual have some recommendation how to do it. Of course, based on other studies, very relevant. Another challenge, identifying or quantifying main reasons of food loss. In this case, one of our reference is Lisa Johnson. For example, it's very interesting, this paper, because maybe Lisa Johnson will say, Hector or Joan or Berta or Raquel, you don't have to measure, you don't have to weigh. Remember the previous example? You don't have to measure, you have to weigh all the oranges in the same box. You have to categorize these oranges. And you have the very different categories to do it. At least these 3 categories are very useful, not only for you, like a researcher, but also for the farmer. Again, remember engagement. This is very good in order to have the picture of the food loss problem in your plot, especially for the farmer. Marketable and edible, edible but non-marketable, and inedible and non-marketable. Here you have an example, well, from mandarins and oranges. Okay, when we say edible, of course it's edible for human consumption, okay? But here also you can include, for example, the typical example of orange that fall down on the floor and stay there for 4 days. And because of humidity, maybe it's affecting the orange. So maybe when you are going to take this orange, it's not completely edible, but was edible some days before. So this orange is also considered edible. On the flip side, you have oranges that are affected by a plague or are completely rotten. And this you cannot estimate if in some point was edible or not. All of them are considered inedible. Considering the question of marketable and non-marketable, well, it depends on the food commodity. You have several parameters to consider marketable and non-marketable. In this case of mandarins and oranges, it's marketable, especially to sell as fresh fruit, not like juices. Sorry?
Hector, sorry, thanks. Sorry, maybe when you were explaining the case of the oranges felt in the floor 4 days before, I think it was not clear among edible and inedible. Could you repeat this part, please?
Of course, of course. Edible. Edible is perfectly suitable for the human consumption. You and me, we can eat. So this part of, for example, oranges that are completely edible when we are going to take. This is one volume that is considered obviously edible. Another volume of oranges are, for example, the typical orange that is completely edible, was in the treetop, but suddenly fall down on the floor and stay on the floor 4 days. And this is affected only by the humidity of the soil, but was absolutely perfectly suitable for the human consumption. These are also, from our point of view, considered edible. Which are not considered edible, which are considered inedible. For example, orange that is affected by a plague, you cannot eat. Or maybe it's completely rotten and you have no idea if in some point was edible or not. In this case, in both cases, are considered inedible. More clear, or do you need other example of other fruit or vegetables? Or this silence is very... Raquel?
Yes, thanks. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. And marketable and non-marketable, remember, depend of the different parameters according to the different food commodities. For example, one of the main parameters for mandarins and oranges in order to be marketable, remember, fresh fruit, not for example for an orange juice, is the caliber. The caliber is very important for that. So you can classify according to the caliber. Here you have an example of this very interesting with losses of orange. This is in one plot, grams per tree. And what's very interesting because we consider that normally have to be the main of the volumes will appear in edible but not marketable. But surprisingly, the majority of the volume of the food losses were inedible and marketable. So you can see so useful is this information for the farmer. In fact, with the farmer in this project with WWF, the farmers say, Raquel or Berta or Hector, I think that we could increase a little bit the complexity of these categories. We are going to create 4 categories. These 4. Edible and marketable using this caliber. And now be careful. Edible, but marketable by law, not by the market. This is the caliber that theoretically you can sell as fresh orange, but the real life is say to the producer, no way, I don't want these oranges. So this is a new category. Other is edible but not marketable by law by the market, and inedible and non-marketable. So you can use several categories that could be interesting for you, for your research, but also for the farmer. Again, to increase the engagement with the farmers. Even you can be even more complex to link different reasons behind with the different categories. But again, depending on your objective or your resources, so you have many different possibilities in this regard. And finally, the final challenge is measuring the diversity. This is very important because in many of the studies, remember, appears food loss is more or less 10% of the total production. It's okay. But many of you that are very familiar with the food losses problem knows that food losses is very complex and depend on the food commodity, of course, but depend on the territory, depend on the year, depend on many different factors. This is an example of this complexity and diversity. Here we have a plot, and here we have grams per tree, so food losses analyzed in these trees, in different trees. So we have the same crop, the same, not the same year, the same day we collect this information. And the difference are, you can see, very relevant. From 1 kilo of food losses in one tree, from 18 kilos. So we consider this important to show this diversity of information that we have and to show this complexity of the problem when we are analyzing food losses. You have several possibilities to show, to analyze this problem, so some recommendations are included, and maybe you can also recommend other ways of show this diversity. Okay, so finally, the last point of my talk is to explain a little bit these key contributions, reflections from the external expert. Again, thank you very much for your help, for your collaboration, and we have to say that the feedback are very, very positive, but this is not an exam. We don't have to pass the exam. We are now in a state that we have to prove everything. We have to test everything. We have to validate everything. Everything has to be criticized. So any question, any doubt, anything that you consider that we can improve, do not hesitate to let us know. Until now, the feedback that we receive, we have like some ideas that we are going to highlight here. One, and I think that Berta also was mentioning it, the possibility of including new tools within the manual to help measure food losses. So our answer is, of course, normally we have like specific meetings or interviews, first of all, to analyze the potential of this tool. And second, it's very important not only to say, well, this tool is good to measure food losses. For us, it's too generic. We have to know in which specific task is good this tool. That's the point, in order to include in this specific chapter or subchapter. In fact, we have to include also the new technology that we are now testing in the Follow project. Second, many of you highlight the importance of the reduction of food losses and waste should be seen as an opportunity for improvement in the production sector. Remember this. It's good to know that many of you completely agree with this idea that we have to change the mentality that food losses is not a problem that we have to hide under the carpet. So we have to do the opposite, to show, because the farmers are not the guilty, they are the victim of the problem. And we have to help to show the problem and to reduce the problem. So it's good to know that you agree with this. The third one is some of you say, okay, you were talking about qualitative approaches, interviews, questionnaires, but we consider that is the most suitable way is to use semi-structured interviews. Why? Because it's very good to explore farmers' perceptions and to raise new and foreseen topics. And it's very good to address complex issues that maybe affect the volume of food losses. An example of that, to identify how farmers determine when it's time to stop harvesting in a given crop. Yes, the effect to the food losses. So how you could identify this, is important to have this flexibility. So our answer is yeah, completely agree. So we are going to include this in the next draft of the manual. So thank you very much for the recommendation. And there is also like a general agreement, at least until now, with the feedbacks on the necessity of measuring both loss perceived and real loss. Remember the slide. It's completely different what I think I do than what I really do. And both things are important to measure. Other thing that was interesting is that we have to emphasize in the manual the importance of measuring several years, because the complexity of this problem, we cannot say something like, well, we measured one time, the task did, and that's it. We did the exam, finished. It's not like that. In order to analyze the complexity of the problem, we need to analyze several times. So we completely agree, and we are going to emphasize a little bit more this in the manual. So thank you. And finally, some of you say, Adrià or Berta or Joan or Hector, come on, 80 pages, too much. And we have to say, yes, it's quite large, this document, but it's necessary to have this, let's say, reference document to explain why we have these recommendations to measure food losses. But it's true that we have to create like an additional manual, this step-by-step manual, more visual. Now we have something, an idea of that in the final annex, in order to respond briefly the main question. No? What do we have to measure? Where do we have to measure? How do we have to measure? And for example, if you want to go to know a little bit more about how you have to select farms and plot or collect qualitative data, you can click on it and go to the specific chapter within the manual. But that's true that we have to improve this idea. So again, thank you very much. And well, I think that I am going to finish, but I want to finish with this message that we have to stress the manual. We are in this stage that we have to prove everything. We have to validate everything. We have to think that it's possible, not only theoretically, but it's realistic. In order to be realistic, again, it's possible to measure food loss, because the main objective of this manual at the end of the project is to show, as Berta said, that it is possible to measure food losses in many different food commodities. So after that, we have no excuse to include food losses problem in the monitoring process of the member state in the EU. We have to include this apart from food waste in order to understand the entire picture of the problem. So, okay, so I think that now, as the previous seminar, now I am going to change my role. Now I am going to be passive and you are going to be active. So now you can, maybe Raquel, Berta, Joan, you can describe a little bit this dynamic activity, and I am going to rest a bit. So Raquel, Berta, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Hector, and thank you very much es que entra, sorry, voy a fer a problem with the echo, però entra la meva veu. Okay, So thank you very much. We will have now some survey that Berta will share with you through Slido. We will put you here in the chat the way of entering also. And the idea is also to collect some information. You can enter to the Slido through anonymous mode, or you can, I think you can put your name. If you don't mind, for us, it's better to having your name in the Slido. If not, you don't mind. The idea is to share with all of you the answers. And Hector, we will have some questions and comments through the chat that are very interesting. Not so many, so if we have time at the end of the Slido, maybe we can also have some comments and feedback on the comments.
Great.
So you
Don't be
can
shy,
enter,
please.
exactly. So you can enter the Slido, typing slido.com and entering this code. I write it down also in the chat, 4023, or so you can use your computer or your mobile phone. Y ver si vos compuso ya. Sí.
Vale. Okay, now we have the first questions. We will wait a bit to show the results so we don't influence anyone participating.
Yes. Don't manipulate the audience, please.
And now 14 people, 16 people, okay. Have answered. We are about 40 people, 50 people now in the call, so maybe we wait a bit. Puc dir-lo? Also, I mean, I just take the chance to also explain you that within the Follow project, there is a work package that is focusing on preparing some courses and training materials, basically to share with the sector and with people that can benefit from all the results that we are creating in the Follow project. And some of these questions will be also useful for them in order to see which topics do you think that are more interesting to be included in these trainings, which like sectors of the population should be addressed, or like should be the public for these trainings, etc. So just for you to know. So I think we can show the results now. Okay, basically almost everyone is involved in the food loss and waste issues, let's say, field. So all the feedback that you provide us for sure will be super useful.
And we wait all those who are not yet to be involved very soon.
Okay, so we go to the next slide. Next question, sorry. The question is like if you are involved in measuring or if you will measure in the future food loss or food waste.
This is very much related to one of the comments from the breadcrumbs. So we are very aware that there are many projects that is very good news measuring different parts with using different living labs, case studies, etc. And commodities. So we believe it's very interesting to at least coordinate, be aware of the project, because we will not be able to measure everything so exhaustively. So to share results, methods, ideas, and also moments of desperation also, so to say. I think we all have already answered, no?
Okay, So there are quite some people who have already been involved in measuring or will measure food losses and waste. Oops, now, okay, thank you. Then, so the next question is, if yes, so if you have been involved or you will be involved in measuring food loss and waste, if to know which stage of the food supply chain have you conducted these measurements? Vale. Okay. So, okay, from 13 people, but so, okay, many people have measured food losses or food waste at primary production. These are very good news also for us because actually, no, it's where we are focusing our measurements. So it's very interesting to know that there are people who have already done that. I hope that the ones that you have done that, you have reviewed the document to share your experience or your expertise on this. Otherwise, of course, you have still time to do it. That will be very, very valuable for us.
Yes, also the idea we know all the process of publishing a paper are quite long, and sometimes also it's even in our national languages in a very preprints or specific reports for the administration. We also want to collect and to have an overview of this. Also, don't be shy of sharing with us if you know a very small summary of the estimations you have done, the method, because the idea at the end of evolving this manual is also to put some cases and some examples of real measurements. It's very important for us collecting not only the scientific publications that until the first review we've collected everything so far published, but we are very aware that many reports in French, in German, also in Spanish, that are very interesting and relevant.
Okay, so the next question is focused on the methods you have used or you are going to use when doing these measurements. So if you did direct weighting or through mass balance, waste composition analysis, through coefficients and production statistics, counting or scanning, using diaries or others. Okay, so as Hector also mentioned in the presentation, I mean the results show that the most common methodology are these basically questionnaire surveys or interviews to measure food waste or food loss. But we see that so not that far away. No, you have also been using direct waging, so this is very interesting because these are both methodologies that are proposed in the manual to combine to get this balance between robustness and feasibility at the same time.
I think also the idea with the case studies we have in mind is try to measure how big is the gap, remembering the figure that Hector has shared from the real weighting measurement studies and the difference collected through interviews. So the idea is to see how big are these gaps for the different case studies to make some recommendation for future studies, because there are some weighting methods that very cost they are very costing too much in terms of human resources or even money to be invested. So to see how far and how we can explore better ways of having the maximum, the most reliable data with the minimum effort at the end.
It's also interesting because there are the 13% of respondents who use other methods. So it would be also nice if you could tell us which methods are these ones, because maybe they are also valuable for the project. So if we go to the next, okay, this is the one we. No, this one is, so which methods have you used or are you going to use in the harvest or pre-harvest losses?
This is Hector. This is for the cum laude, recognition. This
Yes,
is
maybe.
you can explain.
Yeah, maybe we have to give an award or a prize, no, for the people that say that they are going to measure food losses with weighting. So we have 50%. But yes, this is the idea, to know if some of you have the challenge of measuring food losses during harvest and pre-harvest stage. And the same, weighting and questionnaire, so it's good to know.
Yes, so we are also trying to see if it's really different, the effort you have to do and the methods if you want to focus, on the pre-harvest or during the harvesting. We will see also through the case studies, if it's different or we should collect everything together. Let's see. So this is the idea. I think the pattern, the pattern has changed a little bit more to the. So we can move.
I think that change the order. Maybe first have to be this, have you measure, and later the method to measure, but okay.
Okay, so this one, so the order was mistaken, and this question should have been before the previous one. So also, taking into account the answers of the previous one, we know more or less who have already done these measurements or will do these measurements. So I think we can go to the next question. So the next question is more related. This is an open question. So you should type, what do you think that are the key knowledge gaps related to food loss in primary production? So these will be also useful to create these training materials that will be created within the Follow project. So 3-4 people are typing now at the same time.
For this
7
question,
now.
maybe we need a little bit of time.
Yeah. Okay, there are about 5 questions left, so it's not that much. Don't be afraid. Stay, please, until the end. Okay, so basically, some knowledge gaps are, but I cannot read all of them, but well, regarding the definition of food loss, wow, it appeared now quite extensive one. But regarding definition, then think about sampling, no? So basically the representativeness of the sampling that we are taking when measuring. Then also basically on the methodology, on the how, no, to measure food losses in the field. Then also, okay, regarding the case of milk, and the reported losses due to fear of producers. Yeah, this is something that it's very, well, we think all of them are very important, but this is a challenge, no, that we need to clear. Well, there are still 2 people typing. 14 people participated. Transfer from primary production to supermarkets when supermarkets rejects losses that stay in primary production. So this is actually very interesting, and this is, we hope we can get some information also within the Follow project by combining results from a work package 2 that is focused on drivers and the case studies and the measurements that we are conducting in work package 4.
Good. Yeah, also regarding the definitional framework, of course, we are very aware, no, that there is still some room, no, for debate, for misinterpretation. But the idea, as Hector has also tried, no, to explain, the idea is to collect all the information, no matter how we will call it at the end, and in parallel, working with the evolution of the definitions and the definitional framework. So because this would be, this would be evolving, but the idea is to collecting what is happening, and what is going on, and what are the drivers of the different volumes to be not consumed, at the end.
Okay, so thanks everyone who texted. We are going to the next question. And it is also an open question, and it is like, of these gaps that you introduced in the previous question, which are the areas that do you feel that would be a training priority? So for researchers, public administration, farmers. So this is, of course, as you can see, it will be useful for these training materials and courses that we will create in the Follow project. And we wanted to take the chance, that we have so many people who are working and who are experts in this field to know your opinion on which are these gaps that should be addressed or that would be a priority for to include in these trainings.
Alice, if you want to add anything, yes, she's typing on the chat. To be more clear, to be more specific, please just go ahead and unmute yourself and add whatever you think is interesting.
Thank you for the invitation, Raquel. This is really helpful to us. As the team have said, we're going to be developing some training courses for a whole range of different groups. So we've listed a few possible recipients or people that might be interested in the training. So there might be researchers, public administrators, or farmers, or other groups in a whole range of different sectors that may be benefiting from the training that the Follow project is going to be so it's really useful to hear everybody's thoughts on what the most important aspects would be for us to convey. The first question that you answered had some really useful points there. And then we need to think about which are the most important and which groups need to hear that information are the priority. So that's what this question's asking. Thank you, Raquel.
Thanks to you, Alice, and for the audience on sharing, and we will share also with you. So don't be worried, if today you don't have the idea, or later, after the webinar, you think, on another actor, agent, or gap. Please share with our, with Hector, with Berta through the Follow webpage. And remember that we want to collect as much as impressions, no, and opinions from the experts, from the community, no, around the world. And you can answer also the survey to be part of these reviewer groups. I think we cannot. It is not necessary now to share the details. But thank you very much for the details.
Yeah, like the previous webinar, we are going to send you to all of you an email with all the material, the video, the response and the answers, everything from this session. We will send you.
Okay, so now we go to the next question. That it's basically who are the stakeholders to target with the new training materials in your sector, for example, if they would be researchers, producers, public administration, companies, citizens in general, or other groups that might not be included here. So to whom it would be interested to target and to create these materials for. Okay, so we see that, well, producers and public administrations are both important stakeholders to target, but as well followed by companies, researchers, and then citizens in general at a much lower percentage. It makes sense also for the topic we are addressing, basically. Okay, so we go to the next one. Is it slow? So basically, in this question, we would like you to identify which of the following challenges that are listed in the slide. So which ones do you consider that are the most difficult to solve? So we talk, I don't know, Hector, if you want to describe them or I do it.
As you prefer. Remember, starting point of food losses, ready to be harvested. It has sense to define the line, if it's easy to define this line or not. The sampling area, remember the plot, and we have to analyze which percentage of the plot we have to measure to have reliable data. Cuts, I think someone say that is something difficult when you have several activities of picking up fruits, how you could measure this, the challenge of measuring pre-harvest and harvest losses, identifying and quantify main reasons of this food loss, and measuring the diversity, to show the diversity and the complexity of the problem in your project or your studies. And all, you can do everything. Everything is important. Very interesting, the starting point of food losses. I think it's very related to the definition of food losses.
Yes, I agree. Well, it is a challenge, we know, and also depending on the commodity sector, it should also be adapted. So yeah, it's something we for sure need to. Well, we will need to address, in the project, with of course all the collaboration of everyone who is interested in sharing their experience and knowledge, as you are doing right now. So that's very nice. Okay, and then. So then we see that starting point is the top one, but then the three following ones. So sampling area, pre-harvest versus harvest losses, and identify or quantify the main reasons are quite So they have an importance at the same level, more or less. So we go to the next question. No? No. This is like, what challenge do you think that your experience could contribute to? So basically, no. So if you would like to contribute to the Follow project and to develop this methodology, basically to help us doing it, as I repeat, as some of you are already doing, it would be nice for us to know in which of these points or challenges would you like to contribute, or maybe you think that your experience and knowledge and expertise would be more helpful for to develop this methodology.
Yes, so we've seen that the Slido is not collecting all the names. So if you can write down in the chat, the specific topic and your email, we can reach you, out afterwards. So here there are different scenarios depending on the time, the interest, and the availability you have. So you can read the whole manual and send us some specific, and very specific targeted comments. Or maybe we can have a very only online web meeting to share some ideas, impressions, and there is not necessary to have the full report comments from your side. If we also have a group of experts that are very interested on the same topic, maybe we will think about if it's interesting or not to do some specific workshops, online workshops on the matter.
In fact, look that the more complex they estimate that is the starting point, and now they consider that they could contribute in this point. So thank you very much. That's good to know.
Okay, so this is the last question. This is also an open question. So here, what we would like to know is what aspects of food loss measurements have you considered that have not been addressed in this webinar, and you would like to see addressed in the next one or in more specific meetings, such as the ones that Raquel just mentioned.
Yes, so we give you some means to complement. We also have collected all the comments through, within the chat that also answers partially this question. And the idea now is maybe, Hector, we can review some of the comments and replying a little bit very briefly, all of them, and comment. And if some of the audience wants to also to share or to make the question, in person, you can also have the opportunity to do so. And once we finish, we can end up the meeting, or if we finish at the time, we finish at 1.
Yeah, but be careful, just few minutes before, to explain a little bit more if you want to be part of Follow project and the next seminar with the date and things like that.
Hector, so if you want to share, we are collecting the topics, we can share it afterwards. So please keep writing. If you are typing the comments, we can share it afterward. Hector, if you can recover the floor and sharing the screen, if some of them has to leave to be aware of the link and the next webinar date, and we can move to.
Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Wow. Maybe now.
Yeah, yes, now.
Okay, so if you want to check this quantification manual or the definitional framework, the only thing that you have to do is to, well, some of you know, so it's not a problem just for new people. You have to register as an external expert of Follow. You have to just go to this link and have, some information about you, and later we will send you the documents, and in a very easy way to add comments, maybe like a Word document or something like that. So we will send you these two documents, the definitional framework and the quantification manual. And after, we have several ways, as many of you know, to have this feedback, no? And the dialogue is more than feedback. We prefer dialogue with many of you to know how we could, again, build this common path, methodological path. So it's very easy to be part of. And just to know that the next meeting is in May. I don't know the name, the day. I don't know if it's Wednesday but anyway, the 16th of May, the same hour, we will address the next challenge. Is okay, in this one, we are trying to explain and to share how we could measure, for example, in a plot or in a farm. But what happens if we want to measure a territory, a region, a country, how we could do it? That's the challenge for the next seminar. So if you are interested in the same, we will send you the information to be registered. That's it. And of course, maybe now is the moment that if you have some questions, doubt, we will send you the presentation. So you will have all these emails, many of you have. But if you have some questions, some suggestions, do not hesitate to let us know. Okay, so go to the questions and ideas.
Yes, so only one thing, Hector. The webinar will be on the 23rd of May, not on the 16th. There was a...
Sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Also,
So-
in the Follows website, it's the correct date. Sorry, we changed 2 weeks ago the date, and there's
I am
some
getting
mistake.
older. Sorry.
So we are not having the cum laude Hector today.
As always.
Next day. No, so if you don't mind, we can have a review of the comments, Hector, and if you want to
Okay.
to replay as we comment, no, we will also come back to you with the answers, no, written answers of this, that as we have some time, no, extra, we can share. So first of all, at the beginning, Eva Sally was mentioning, was having a comment, no, regarding the definition. I can read it to you, Hector, and Berta has already replied a little bit, but maybe we can expand the explanation. So the question was, what would be the living being in the proposal for a definition that are not falling under the category animals? It would be clearer if the word slaughtered was added after harvested, so that both plants and animals are covered. Thank you.
Yeah, this is, thank you. Who is Eva, no? Thank you, Eva. Yes, I remember the previous seminar. Many questions were related to this living being concept. Yeah, yeah, agree. The idea is to try to cover other things that maybe are not considered strictly as animal or plants. So in order to cover everything, we put this like living being. But on the flip side, the majority of you consider that it's not very clear. So maybe we have to change this for other word, like, I don't know, some, for example, imagine mushrooms, how we could identify this kind of unclear, let's say that is not completely animal or plant. And in order to be sure that everything is covered, we put living being, but maybe we have to change the name, but we have to find the proper name that to be more comfortable. And about the order, no, slaughter and harvested, I think it's not a problem. So for this, we could study. Now I have to see the definition and how the proposal, but I think the order is not a problem.
Okay, thanks, Hector. And then we move to Sandra Luke from Boku. And she was asking about the drone case studies approach So Joan has shared with her the links on the website, but I don't know if there is still someone from Dilepix in the meeting, and you want to add something else?
Well, Aurelien is here, so I don't know if Aurelien. Sorry, Aurelien, for my French, but
Or
That's
Hector,
fine.
if you want to add something else. Or
okay.
Anna.
So yes, well, I
Yeah,
think
Aurelien.
Aurelien is talking, but
Yes,
if not, I could.
I'm still here. I'm just
Ah,
trying
great.
to find back the question in the chat. Can you repeat, Raquel?
I would like to know more about the drone approach. Is there more information on how it is done with cauliflower and apples?
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, there are two details articles on Follow website that might be interesting to check if you want more information. One is specifically dedicated to cauliflower, and the other is on apples. And for the moment, is either trying to use the drones to have a better view of the sampling areas that should be used for food loss measurement, and also trying to use them to perform direct measurement on what could be food losses, and trying to quantify it, which are the next steps that we are targeting in the project right now.
Mhm.
I can send the two links in the chat if you want.
The links are already in the chat.
Okay.
And so, yes, if you want to share your contact, your email contact, no, and also Anna, no, was the one. You can, Sandra, sorry, you can ask also no, later to Aurelien and our colleagues from Dilepix from more details if you want. Also, Agnese, no, has mentioned Agnese. I don't know if she's still here.
Hi, Raquel. Yes, I'm here. No, I was just mentioning that for anyone that is participating to the webinar today and is interested in the replication of the activities of the Follow project, we will soon launch a call for the selection of twinning regions. So you can contact us for more details, and we will be publishing on the website more information in the coming period.
Yes, brilliant, Agnese. Thank you very much. Hector, we move to a comment from Robert. If aquaculture salmon of 1 kilo is not harvested because that is not commercially viable, or it is subsequently is being discarded, not eaten by people, then this food waste in the purest sense of the word. Our job is to improve the food supply chain operations to prevent this to happen. So if you don't mind, Hector, so I agree with you, Robert, that this is the idea, no? To quantify, to measure, and to analyze the food losses and food waste, no? Situations right now to be able to prevent, no? The current magnitudes of the situations and to change the dynamics of the system. But regarding the definitions and the words to be used, in the case of Europe, it would depend on the destination of these salmons. And it would depend also on the consideration of if it's considered food or not. So this is because, no, we are very aware of depending, no, on also the word, no, on the country in the world we are, the definitions and the approach would be different. But the idea also at the end is to be able to so to say, Berta, to adjust, no, our European definition and estimations to also other approaches internationally or from other countries, no, to be able to compare the data, because at the end it's an effort that we are doing globally, no, in the world, in many parts of the world, not only in Europe.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Robert, the most important is not the name that we have to do, because in Europe we have to adjust to the current definition. You highlight waste in this word, food waste, but maybe we have to highlight in Europe food. That's the problem here. That is not considered food, unfortunately for us. So we have to put another name, but the most important thing is that we have to measure everything. Remember, to have the entire picture of the problem. So if someone in some regions or some country have to name as whatever another name and are completely equivalent, is not a very important problem. The most important right now is to measure this part that now in Europe you don't have to be measured.
Please, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Of course.
Okay. I mean, I made a comment and I made another one which is in a similar line, and then when you showed the slides with the key points or so, I was very encouraged because I thought there you presented exactly what I wanted to say. We have to do the right thing, whether you call it food loss or waste or not, that doesn't matter so much. But on this particular example, where you said that the salmon of 1 kilogram, I'm sure we're talking about aquaculture and not caught from the sea or so, is edible. That means it is food, isn't it? If I understood your original definition of food as well, then that is food. That meaning if you, and then that can indeed, we know how these value chains work. If it is not commercially viable, it is discarded. But then if you consider it food, 1 kilogram salmon, then you should find a way that this salmon is still going to be eaten by people, even if it is not commercially viable. That is the thing I wanted to make. So what Hector, what you just said, do you want to say that this 1 kilogram edible salmon is not considered as food, or is it?
Unfortunately, in Europe, this is something that for this, yes, you were in the previous webinar. Remember that
Yes.
we are talking about food loss, but the European Union is consider that prior to harvesting is not food, but we still are named as food. Why? Because we consider that we have to put this as food, because we consider as food and it's very valuable and we have to measure and we have to reduce.
Yeah, exactly. But then we are on the
Yeah.
same line, because that is what I want to hear. I mean, I don't care what the official guidelines in the European Union says, as long as we as practitioners in the value chain do the right thing. That is what I want to say. And I'm fully confident when I hear the deliberations today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Robert. Yes, so I think we are very aligned, no? What we are doing this at the end is to prevent, no? To measure, and at the end we will see how we call it or not, and we'll see. Also regarding, no, your second comment on the marketing, no? Let me check if I find it. Yeah, so you and I come back to the previous one. Everything that is edible is in principle also marketable for human consumption. It just depends on the market that you look for. Plus, you can create or stimulate new markets. That it's part of our job to reduce food loss and waste. So I totally agree with you. I think the idea of differentiating among marketable and edible is precisely to identify what are the drivers behind these volumes not moved to other stages of the supply chain, because there are different dynamics. So there are some specific rules, regulations in Europe, regarding marketing standards. Also, there has been a comment on following. There is a breadcrumb project also working especially on this, but also there are some specific marketing standards in the very commercial orientation based on the retailers or the wholesalers putting these marketing standards to the farmers to harvest or not specific tomatoes, apples, or oranges. So idea was to differentiate among different categories to be able at the end have more potential solutions to reduce these volumes. It is also related to I will share, I will mix the comments to one of the final comments regarding the feeding, what is going to the feed sector or what is going to the redistribution. We haven't also yet mentioned it. We are interested in understanding the whole system and all the flows from the system. Maybe today, and maybe this manual is more oriented and pointed onto the methods, But the idea, no, with the other work packages, no, from Follow is understanding what is being produced, no matter the name, if it's food or not, no, what is moving to the food supply stages, what is moving to the distribution, no, sector for free, food banks, food charities, the cleaning activity, etc. What is moved to the feeding sector, what is moved to the energy sector. So all the destinations. But yes, today we've been very specific on the methods and on specific destinations, because we are also very interested on calibrating the methods and the approaches. But thanks also for the comment. Anna, do you want to add something?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, but as I said, I'm working also on a breadcrumb project that started in January, and we are investigating all of the food marketing standards that they are in European Union, but also we are focusing on the private ones, because we know that it's also creating a lot of problem due to the really specific standards from retailers that actually causing a lot of food losses, because, for example, we know that, for example, if you have the second class apples, they can be used in the processing, so then it's not considered as a loss. But in the case that it's also happening in Belgium, like or in the Netherlands, we know that last year some of the farmers, they just did not decide even to pick up the fruit, because they knew due to the weather conditions they don't have the certain shape, or they have some problem like the damage on the skin, and then they said picking up them, storage them, and try to then sell them, they're gonna create more costs than actually we can get it for example from the processing companies. So in that case, it's the food loss. So so this is really we are on the stage of the preparation of our case studies. We also have a case studies for different sectors. So we have the fruits and vegetables, cereals, fish, meat, and eggs. And we also trying to prepare and also collect the data as good as possible. But we also we are aware that that interviews can, because we are doing mainly via the interviews or surveys, or some of the companies, they also decided for a weighing. So what is really nice, but we know that it's really challenging, because also we want to know also specifically which part of the total food loss waste it's related to the standards. And we know that they're not really yet maybe, or they're not always keeping in mind this kind of thing. So yes, so we know that also it's a lot of good food that can be perfectly good for consumption. So we also have in our project this one work package really focus on suboptimal food, where it's they're still good for consumption, but it's not that has maybe package damages or something. So we also try to tackle this one, and we hope, and it's really nice. As I said, I follow, and I think I'm gonna follow, give the link for for the other partners from our project to, and I think it's really important, and it's really nice things that more projects collaborate together, and we all using the same definitions, the same approach, because we know that this food waste loss topic, it's so complex, and if everyone works in their own garden, it's make it even more difficult. So thank you for all of the initiative that you're taking, and it's so super interesting. So I will try to also spread it in our project, and also I work in a zero project that it's already Raquel, so that had a small introduction on Monday, and of course consumers, they're another part of the group of besides the food chain that we have to really focus on, because all of the standards by retailers, they are actually made to attract the consumers. So I think it's also really important. And thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much, Anna. And we totally agree. And this is the idea of these webinars, no? And collecting the experts' names to collaborate, because at the end, the problem is so big and it's so complex that within even with the projects, no, from 3 to 4 years, we are not able to measure everything and to calibrate and to pilot everything. So it's better, no? For example, we are not having the X case study, So it is nice hearing, no, that you have the X case study to see how is going on, no, and to collect more information that we are missing. So let's see the other comments. So Diana Teixeira from Animal Health Europe, Hector has mentioned that nowadays you have milk production data for each cow, so you know when and how much it breaks. It's just a matter of starting analyzing the data that the farmers already store. Diana, if you want to have the floor and share something else, go ahead. Don't be shy. But if not, she's already shared her contact, and we are starting the pilots on the milk sector also. No, Hector, if you want to add something.
Yes, well, if Diana is here and she want to, yes, Diana is here. So I don't know if you want to add something, Diana.
No, I mean, I think that's what I said in the chat. I was very surprised that you used the milk sector as an example where it's difficult to measure, because it's not the kind of sector where you actually even need questionnaires. The data is there, you don't need to see it, it's registered already. So yeah, I was just surprised by the difficulty that I don't see, and I was kind of trying to understand what is exactly what you find difficult about it.
Well, about the milk, we have no idea about the difficulties that we are going to have. And for this, we have this case of study in Ireland and the Netherlands, have different way of producing milk. And the idea is to identify if there are some difficulties or not in terms of methodology. If not, great. The idea is not, to address different food commodities and understand the difficulties, the challenges, and maybe they don't have any kind of difficulty and challenges. So we will include in the manual, like, for example, the case of milk. Don't worry, we have some registers, some things that we could do in this way or the other. But I would like to finish the case of study in order to have some conclusion on it.
Yes, thanks, Hector. And just to clarify also, so the idea is not only to validate the methods, but also to collect some direct information from the field. And also maybe in the previous webinar, we stressed a little bit more the idea, but today we haven't commented yet, that we also want to compare the different production systems. So the conventional, the agroecological, and the organic systems, to see also if the methods and the quantities and the drivers are different in the orientation of the production systems. So the pilots are not only oriented and the case studies on the calibrating the methods, that it's the first months are more oriented to this, but also the coming years are to compare production systems and orientations. I think I'm not missing, or yes, but no. Claudio Beretta has already mentioned the last comment on the feeding, on the food losses on feeding. I think I already covered with my explanation. If not, Claudio, please let me know if we haven't covered all your comment or questions. If not, again, we will share it with all of you, and we will share the written answers to everybody. And I think it is everything. Berta, Hector. Yeah, I don't know, Anna, Joan, or any other colleague from Follow wants to share and to announce something else. If not, Berta?
Can you hear me? Oh, yes. No, no, because Juan had to leave. So, well, basically, we want to thank everyone who participated in the webinar, for attending, for being just for being interested in the work we are doing. We are very happy that so many people joined and also sent us some comments. So as we said before, please, you can share the whatever interest or like things you want to
like projects, reports, things that you experience that you have already, quantifying food losses or on definition, everything with us. You can find our emails in the presentation that we will share with you. Also, we will write them in the chat. But so just like thank you very much, and hopefully see you at the end of May in the next webinar.
Thank you
Bye.
very
Bye bye.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All the best, Claudio. I can see you now.
Yes, sorry, it's a bit dark.